back. WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are into the silly season here. We are going to play Major League Baseball beginning this weekend. The Orioles will head up to Fenway Park. Empty stadiums, full television sets, and this guy has been run ragged. I follow him out on Twitter. You should too. He is a longtime baseball insider and longtime friend of ours here at WNST. Bob Nightengale is the USA Today sports Major League Baseball columnist and also an insider with baseball writers and all of this stuff. You can follow him on Twitter at @Nightengale. Bob, I mean, I've been following along. It's been quite a twisted trail from back in March when I'm assuming you were out there in your homeland of Phoenix covering baseball, and COVID sort of took over everything, and they're going to play, they're not going to play, the players, the money, all of that. They're going to play baseball this week, and I'm still not sure it's a good idea, and I'm still not sure they're going to finish it, but I'm convinced they're going to try to get away with starting it, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and, that's how all systems go now. Blue Jays, of course, have a problem. They got to find a place to play their home games, but, we'll definitely get off the ground here, and, we'll see what happens. I mean, they've been very encouraged to only 0.5% positive tests last week, less than 2% overall when this whole thing got started. So guys are taking it seriously.
I think if I would have called you every Monday morning and had you on, you would have had a different opinion every week, right? Like for 6, 8, 10 weeks, May into June, into early July, as to whether this was going to happen. I think the wind blew in different directions all the time. For you, with what they've done and the long term of the players and some of the players opting out, Markakis and others, but just for the relationship between the players and the owners, this has been like a really awful time, right? And in the end, the owners just sort of ratcheted it up and did what they wanted to do. This is their design of a season, right?
Well, originally I think they all wanted at least an 81, 82 game season. And the owners did propose an 82 game season at one point. But you look back, as bad as the pandemic was, I'm not sure if they could have played July 4th weekend. I really don't. Just too many cities weren't allowing it. Even this past week, 16 states had their all-time high for positive tests. So,
and you're in one of those places, right? Like you're in Phoenix. It's not good, right?
No, it's out of control in Phoenix. Tell you what happened was they opened up early, and then I think half the state of California was here for Memorial Day weekend. It was like Mardi Gras. It was unbelievable. The bars and restaurants, people let their guards down, big time. So it should be a fun season. So every game counts 2.7 times as much as normal. So, this will be the first time in baseball history no team will be eliminated before September.
How sloppy was this for them to announce all this and then find out, like, over the weekend, oh, yeah, like, the Blue Jays, they're in another country. This became public over the weekend, but, like, they've had to know all along that they better have had a plan B, and it feels like they haven't had a plan B. I could say that about baseball a lot. Back to Bud Selig's shrug, a generation ago, that where's the bigger plan when it's a Monday morning and we have a country for the Blue Jays to play and it's just not Canada?
Yeah, they should have had a plan B. I know when the schedule makers made up the season, the idea from the get-go was that, okay, this is going to work either if they start the season in Toronto or start the season in the Tampa Bay area. That way they could share the complex with the Rays at Tropicana Field. And then I think they kind of let their guard down in the sense where, the mayor of Toronto was getting okay and different government officials said you can play here. So remember they all took off and went to Toronto for their summer camp. And then boom, I think they got blindsided like, now you guys can't do this. You can't go in and out of the country. Look at the U.S. It's a nightmare there. So I think they were caught off guard. Probably the Blue Jays should have had some kind of alternate plan ready to go.
For you and grading Manfred on all of this and where this has been, there was a point where it looked like they weren't going to play, right? There were long stretches, quite frankly, where you were writing about it.
I never bought into that. I always thought they were going to play. There was no way you could not have a season. It would have been a complete nightmare for baseball. I mean, it would have been much worse than canceling '94 World Series. And it's one thing if you can't play because of pandemic, completely another because of financial reasons. I never believed they could have stopped the season just for that.
The 60-game season and the integrity of all of this and bringing this thing together where some guys are going to play, some guys aren't going to play. Look, sports is about injuries and guys being on disabled list and being unavailable. I'm way more concerned from the football perspective of thinking like whole teams could get knocked out of this thing. I think baseball has thought this through a little bit more, and I think these guys have taken this a little bit more seriously, that if you're the one who gets COVID, you don't get to play, right? You don't get to get paid. You don't get to compete. They've all had this taken away, and I think you've been at this as long as I have. The one thing that every athlete hates the most is not playing, right? Whether it's sitting on the bench or being a backup or not having access, that there is a general level of responsibility for these guys that if you want to play, you can't be out touching girlfriends and running around the bars and doing the things that you normally do as a 26-year-old male, either in Canada or America. Sometimes it's more fun in Canada. But I would think for the bubble part of all of this, that it's pretty clear all of these guys have had teammates that have had this. Certainly the Freeman situation in Atlanta, his account of this is frightening for all the players.
How he caught it. He maybe a little family gathering before he went to back to Atlanta. He's guessing, but he says he was very cautious. It's just strange how it affects different people. Freeman, the Hottovy, the pitching coach of the Cubs, talked about they know they would even make it. And Hottovy is only 37 years old. Of course, Freeman's about 10 years younger, and just hit them so hard, where some guys say they hardly feel a thing. So, yeah, it's just the virus. You just don't know, how you're going to get it or how's your body going to react.
Yeah, we spent last week worrying about Yasiel Puig being an Oriole, and, then he's tweeting in the overnight that he tests positive. Bob Nightengale is here. You can follow him at USA Today. B. Nightengale, of course, longtime contributor around here at WNST and a part of what we've done and a part of baseball as well. You mentioned getting this thing going, and we talk about Manfred, we talk about money. I put the broadcast on Saturday night from Cleveland and Pittsburgh and New York, and the Mets and the Yankees are playing. Some places have cutout bodies, some don't. It's awkwardly weird, either with piped-in noise or with all of this. But then there's just the general part of, who's going to win the games, right? Before opening day, we're usually, making predictions and who's the best team. And I remember back in March, the last time I invited you on, Bob, it was about those damn cheating Houston Astros, those dirty SOBs. Now, all of a sudden, it's more about the virus and all this, but they're going to play games. Who's the best team? I mean, I think we've seen the Red Sox get decimated. I've joked that the Orioles, the only way they were going to avoid 100 losses was to not play a full season. I don't think the Orioles are going to be very good. But who's going to win? Who is this going to be interesting for?
Yeah, I think whoever wins is going to be remembered for a long time, more than any other recent year. Maybe since 2001 when the Diamondbacks beat the Yankees after 9/11. Indicates just everything this country's gone through. You got to be mentally and physically tough to survive this season. The players had no idea. You go to spring training, stop. You don't know when it's going to start up again. If it's going to start up again, then the unknown of the season. So I don't think there should be any asterisk at all as far as who wins this thing. And I think they'll be excited just because you're starting to see the middle of the pennant race. You always hear that old motto, "Oh, it's a marathon, not a sprint." Well, now it's a sprint. And even bad teams, whether Orioles or Marlins or things like that have, zero chance, all of a sudden now there's a sliver of hope just because anything can happen in a crazy 60-game season.
Oh, I think anything can happen where you don't have pitchers prepared to pitch, hitters prepared to hit. The one thing I noticed just watching it over the weekend was it felt like some pitchers had a little extra cheese, and it feels like they were keeping their arms in shape in a way that hitters could not stay in the kind of shape they wanted to stay in because live pitching's just different than hitting off a machine. And, I don't know where the advantages are, offense, defense, pitching or not, but I do know that it levels the playing field for how good Mike Trout would be and how bad the best minor league pitcher would be, let's say, on any given day, that 3 innings of pitching, all the weird rules changes, maybe this does benefit a team like the Orioles if they start 5-1 or something like that, and you say, well, 5-1 only sounds like 2 series. Well, it sounds like 10% of the schedule if you're 5-1 next week, right?
Yeah, I mean, a 5-game winning streak is the equivalent of a 14-game winning streak, and the same as a 5-game losing streak. But yeah, I got to think the advantage is to the hitters in the sense where, these guys don't need 6 weeks of spring training. They never did. These guys are probably in the batting cages and stuff during the pandemic and still stay in shape. I think the guys who get hurt the worst are the starting pitchers because they're not going to be, ready to go long. They're not going to be sharp. I mean, you saw what happened to Scherzer, getting lit up the other day against the Phillies, I think 7 runs in a few innings. So that sort of thing. And I think the relievers should be fine. I think the one rule, that new rule, is going to play a big effect is the 3-batter minimum rule. And if some of these guys aren't ready yet, you can cost your team a game by yourself.
Well, these games are going to feel like spring training games in a lot of ways because you're not going to have a pitcher who would, in a normal game, throw 7 or 8 pitches and be a specialist because that role is kind of gone now. So everybody's going to have to pitch a little bit more. Everybody's going to have 20, 30, 40 pitches in them, and you're going to see 2 innings from this guy. It's going to be like an all-star game. 2 innings from this guy, 2 innings from this. That's the way the game's going to be played, and that really does neutralize $35 million pitchers now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how that works. It's you have to build up. So yeah, you're right. A number 5 starter can look like a team's ace. And the players too are going to put a lot of pressure on themselves, particularly the guys who are about to become free agents or the guys who are arbitration eligible. Like you have a bad week or two, you're going to be having some sleepless nights, knowing how much money it's going to cost you.
Unless you're Chris Davis, of course, and then you can have 3 seasons of bad. We're at a different experiment here. Bob, it's been a while. Some thoughts on the Orioles, just at 50,000 feet. I mean, Elias and Meidel come out of the Astros thing. That sounded like a good thing until maybe they were involved in all of the bad things as well. We'll never know. No one will ever ask because that's the way it is around here in Baltimore. But they're going to field this thing. Most of the organization here was about Adley Rutschman and minor league players and Ryan Mountcastle. If there's been anything we've seen in this 9-month period of COVID and the New World Order of Major League Baseball is that minor league baseball is never, ever, ever coming back the way it once was. And that was sort of the reason to watch the Orioles this year is to say, look at what they're going to do at Frederick and Bowie and Norfolk and what we're going to have around the corner. That's now been taken away from organizations like the Orioles.
Yeah, I mean, the teams that are rebuilding like the Orioles, this year is a complete nightmare because it just, it pushes that rebuilding process back a year. You also don't know how these kids are going to come out of it. I mean, they have to play. So some of these people on the 60-man roster, teams have no intent to put them on a major league field, but they just at least want them to be working out. So yeah, then next year it'll be interesting. I mean, some of these guys are prize prospects. Let's see if they step forward or go backwards. Maybe there's some guys who never would have made it. Now they're a big surprise. So, yeah, for the rebuilding teams, this is a nightmare.
Bob Nightengale is here. He is all things baseball. USA Baseball, you can find him there. You can also find him at USA Today, and B. Nightengale out on Twitter. Who's the best team, Bob?
Well, on paper, it should still be the Dodgers. I mean, they still have the most depth. Not that you need a whole lot of depth in a 60-game season. Would have liked them a lot better if they had David Price, who opted out. I thought Price was going to surprise everybody. I still like the veteran teams, because these guys have been there and done that, and I think they can handle a 60-game season. And the veteran guys, less chance of injury because you're going to be fresh all season. You're not going to need days off. So I still think the Dodgers are the best team. Yankees or Rays probably the second best team. And I like Oakland a lot. I would have liked Oakland better if they didn't have a late start because of the slow down in the testing program. But they're still a very good team, and I think they could surprise a lot of people.
Bob, I hope we get a real season out of this. I hope they make it to the end. I mean, the thing that I have been saying in regard to the virus, and I know you're out in Phoenix, and just the virus making the rules, I've been discussing baseball and football all week long. I fear that football is starting something they can't finish. I fear that for baseball as well, and I sort of admire the fact that they're trying to do this. I don't think it's smart for football given the close quarters, but it does feel more and more like baseball could pull this off, right? Like they could pull this off. Now, whether people are going to watch and whether there's going to be pennant races that are compelling, I don't know that they're going to be competing with football throughout all of this stuff on a night-by-night basis. I hope you stay safe. You're going to be flying around and doing this, right? Like you might be in Baltimore, New York, or Boston before it's all over with, huh?
Yeah, it's probably the biggest disadvantage right now is being in Phoenix, where someplace you're going to have to self-quarantine for 14 days. So obviously I can't go those places until the virus slows down here. But no, at least baseball is trying. And I think, they've been very encouraged. I mean, these first 3 weeks have gone well as expected with the positive tests. So there for a while you said, particularly when the test results were getting back so late, you thought, okay, how's baseball going to do this? Then I still think we'll have some hiccups. I still think we're going to have some days where a team doesn't take the field because the test results haven't been back, forcing teams to play a doubleheader the next day.
Well, that's certainly, I don't know if the Players Associations waived all the rights to that, because I remember every time that happened, it used to be a fist fight, and I'm sure there'll be plenty more fights between the Players Association and the players, but at least they've held it together to get on the field this week. And for that, you're grateful. I'm grateful. We're watching baseball live via satellite. Bob, always great to check in with you, man. Stay safe out there, all right?
All right, I will. My pleasure, as always.
And stay
Thanks
cool. So absolutely. Bob Nightengale out in the Phoenix desert, covering all things seams for the USA Today baseball folks, and B. Nightengale. Nobody doing it better than him. You can find me nasty at WNST.net. AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We are on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Snapchat, and anywhere you are, staying calm, staying local, watching baseball, and remaining Baltimore positive.